How's it going, team? Welcome back to another episode of the Average Jacks podcast. Take two. Had the terrible event of filming this once and running out of storage, so let's hope that doesn't happen again. And sorry if I forget anything, because I feel like the last one was a good take. So today we're doing book club, and the book I'm reviewing is Avoidance, Drugs, Heartbreak and Dogs, which is by Jordan Stevens. Jordan Stevens is a part of Rizzle. You might know him, you might be familiar with him and his journey with mental health, ADHD. He tackles the stigma of these things a lot and tackles the stigma of masculinity and what sort of toxic masculinity is in the modern world. And a guy that I've followed for a while and really enjoyed his journey, his story. Big fan of his music as well. And this book, I loved it. It was great. It was fantastic. It was raw. It was unfiltered, refreshing. Probably one of the best books I've read this year. And not for the reasons that you would think. This isn't a self-help book. It's not a book that's going to give you the keys to fight these things and learn how to, do this and you will get X, do this and you will get Y. This isn't that. It's a memoir, and it's talking about Jordan's life, and I think it literally says starting from the mud and working up, and his childhood, his relationship with his parents, being an only child and being a teenager and being around girls and the relationship, and then getting into your later teens and how that relationship and dynamic changes, and navigating that dynamic and navigating being a young man and then being famous, which I cannot relate to, but the majority of this book I related to, and so deeply I related to it that I almost felt an emotional connection to it. And people might think that's stupid and not be like, oh, fucking, how can you feel an emotional connection to the book? I did. I listened to it on Audible. I had the privilege of obviously listening to Jordan narrate it, which, with his background and what he does for his career, as well as being an author now and an actor, I think he is a musician, and his roots lie in sort of rap and poetry and spoken word, and that shines through massively. If you're going to read this book, I recommend it on Audible, because the way he delivers it and the way that he speaks about it is fantastic. It's rhythmic. It almost feels like you are listening to a song or poetry. I love music, so maybe that's why I connected with it. I appreciate poetry. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say I read poetry or X, Y and Z, but I do have an appreciation for it. And yeah, the guy is fantastic, massively talented, and the way he talks about his struggles and the way that he just leaves no stone unturned, it's so refreshing, and it almost feels like you're having a conversation with your mate. And I think the reason I connected to it emotionally was it made me feel like I was having this conversation, and that it was like relieving to hear someone else talk about it in such an honest way, because I feel like jumping into this and the topics of things like toxic masculinity, that's something I've dealt with, that probably not as much as some, but definitely dealt with it and felt the effects of it, and the issues with self-identity, and am I manly enough, am I masculine enough, am I too much, am I doing this? And the way he talks about it is, I think every man should read this book. I think it's for men of all ages, but particularly young men. I'm not particularly young. I'm nearly 30, but yeah, the way in which he talks about, how young men, boys essentially, are just thrown into being men as soon as they turn 16 or 16 to 18 in these very formative years. Your entire identity is based on how many girls you've been with, how much money you make. Can you drink? Do you drink? Do you play sports? What sports do you play? If you do you do drugs on the weekend? Like, these are all conflicts and internal battles that I reckon not just men, but from this perspective and my own experience is that I feel like men don't talk about it, and I feel like men struggle with it. And I think there's a topic in this book where Jordan says that he thinks men feel more, and that's why we avoid talking about it, because it hurts so much, and we just would rather not admit it. And again, goes back to the topic of avoidance. I think I've definitely avoided difficult conversations and reflecting on myself, and a lot of us do it. And I think when you read this book, you sort of get that relief that it's not just you, and that's definitely what I got. And there's a quote that is in the Guardian, and it says, and I don't want to get into like Andrew Tate and the topic of misogyny and things like that, but it's very sort of relevant for my next point, is that at its best, this book serves as a welcome antidote to the misogynistic influence of Andrew Tate. And what Andrew Tate does is he gives this perception of what men should be and how men should act, and if you don't act like he acts, that's what's wrong with the world. And what Jordan Stevens done is counter that argument. And he's not saying be feminine or not be masculine. He talks about how it's a spectrum and that we move through it, and some days we might feel more masculine than we do feminine, and then other days vice versa, and that's okay. And it's this acceptance and this reflection that we need to have. And he talks about his experience with therapy and how shit had to change, and he confronted himself and confronted his beliefs. And there is a main topic of this book, and sort of the topic that caused him to change, arguably, and become this version of himself. And it's all centered, and it's not in chronological order, and I like that. I thought it was great the way he did it, and it moved and like yo-yoed, because it was all relevant. The way in which he paced it and delivered it just kept you hooked and kept you engaged. And I don't think you need to have ADHD or know anyone with ADHD to relate to this book. It's a big topic, and around the stigma and sort of the treatment and what he does, but it's not a necessity. I think if you can just go into it and take from his experience and his journey, and the way he talks about emotional intelligence is so honest and open. And it was I wish this was something that I could have read when I was younger and related to more. I feel like it's like 10 years too late for me to read this, but I'm in the position now where I'm aware of a lot of what's said in this book, but that still doesn't mean I didn't take a lot away from it. And like I said, it's not a self-help book, but what you do get from it is almost like a hug. It's like someone going, yeah, not just me, Matt. And I think that's so important, and I think especially in men, we don't talk about things and we keep shit bottled up, so you do feel alone. And that's what it gave me. It gave me this reassurance that these thoughts that I've had in the past and these topics that I've avoided, that I'm not just being soft, or I'm not just trying to keep up with this persona of being Jack the Lad and masculine and uber this and uber that, which I was doing. But it's not just me doing that, and we need to be better as men and tackle this problem head on and avoid these things of toxic masculinity, and understand what our values are and what we build ourselves up to be. And a lot of us don't even we was doing a topic with the program that I'm delivering, and one of the sessions was core values, and we don't know. I can't list you what my core values are. Can you list your core values? And I think to understand who you want to be and the best version of yourself, you probably do need to know your core values and what you base your actions on. But definitely check this book out. I think anyone would benefit from it. I mean, even from like a female perspective, like getting into the male mindset and the male psyche, I think it does a really good job of sort of getting into the bits that we don't want to talk about. At the beginning, you do wince and you do cringe, but you just become so comfortable with the narration and the story that you forget about that. And it's almost light-hearted around a dark topic, and maybe dark's the wrong word, but it's a topic that's not, it's in the shadows. It's something that's not got a lot of light on it, and I think what Jordan does excellently is shines the light on it and provides reassurance to you that if you felt this way, then that's not okay, but you're not alone. And I think a lot of people who do feel this way and have felt this way need that. They need to know that it's not just them, and then they can reach out and maybe take things from the book and how to apply it to themselves to be better. And, you know, check out Jordan and the things he's done, you know, like the I'm Whole campaign and his socials. Read the book, and the great quote that he has is, toxic masculinity is everywhere, it's up to us men to fix it. And you might think that's like hippy dippy bullshit and this, that and the other, but it's true. You know, there's a lot of toxic things that we do as men that make us feel shit about ourselves. And why do we do it? We do it because of societal pressure, and that's what we think is what is going to make us happy or make people think highly of us. And, you know, he talks about being a fuckboy and does he deserve compassion because he's done this, and dealing with that status in which he gave himself and which he earned by acting this way and living up to them pressures, and sort of the full circle journey in which he went. So yeah, check this book out. You'll see by the reviews, you know, I mean, if you look just at some of them when you go on Amazon, they're incredible, and you can understand why it's like 4.7 out of 5. Not everyone's going to love it, but, you know, brutally honest and as well as poetic, necessary, urgent and totally original, essential reading for men of all ages, sort of echoing things that I've said before. From the first sentence, you know, you're reading something necessary, urgent and totally original, and I couldn't agree more with that. So yeah, it's very personal, it's funny, it's raw, and it's deep, and I think you'll connect with it. And I think if you allow it to if you allow yourself to give it a chance, you will take something from it. So yeah, I love this book. You might not love it, but I think all men should read it, and they'll take something away that could make them feel better about themselves, or potentially a new tool to deal with that. So before we go, thank you for listening, thanks for checking this out. I know the book club isn't for everyone, but it's something that I really enjoy doing, and I do enjoy talking about books, and hopefully can put a recommendation onto you that you enjoy. Check out the sponsor, Vertical Strength. Shout out to them guys for supporting the podcast and everything they do for me. If you head over to www.vertibalstrength.co.uk, use the code AverageJack, you'll get yourself 20% off. That helps the podcast, it helps them guys, and it gives you guys some quality stuff. Link in the description. And check out my website, www.jackmckeenan.co.uk. Yeah, more on there. And I'll see you for the next episodes. We'll have some great guests on. Always trying to find new guests, get a different perspective on. And there'll be more book clubs coming. But yeah, thank you very much. Hit the subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the episode. If you think it's shit, if you think it's good, if you've read the book, if you enjoyed the book, if there's any books you want me to do for book club, I'm more than willing to look into that if I get a chance to reading it. And share it with your mates. Please pass it on, and let's try and get them 100 subscribers that I'm aiming for before Christmas. So yeah, thank you very much. Have a lovely day, evening, night, whatever you're doing right now, if you're listening or watching, and peace.